My best friend did the unthinkable. She betrayed me by getting pregnant with my husband's child. I was devastated when I found out the truth. But what shocked me even more was that later, my own mother tried to convince me to give them full custody of my children, claiming it was for their future. That double betrayal broke me more than I ever thought possible. I was holding the laundry basket, about to head to the washer, when I heard the ping of a notification. Adam's phone was lying on the edge of the couch, the screen lit up. I glanced over just to silence it. But my heart stopped when I read it. When are you going to tell her? I'm pregnant. I can't keep hiding this. Time froze. I didn't move. My breath caught. My entire body tensed. I recognized the number. I knew exactly who it was. Haley, my best friend. The woman who stayed by my side in the hospital when I gave birth. The one I trusted like a sister. I could hear the shower running. Adam was humming. Carefree. Like his life wasn't seconds away from collapsing. I just stood there, staring at the screen, hands trembling. When he walked out and saw me holding his phone, my face must have said everything. He didn't even get the chance to speak. I walked over and slapped him. Hard. Across the face. No words. No tears. Just fury, built up over years. I packed a bag, grabbed the kids, and drove to my parents' house. Now I'm lying on the same old couch in my childhood bedroom. The kids are asleep. I'm not. I can't. My body feels disconnected. My mind won't stop racing. It all feels unreal. I didn't just lose my husband. I lost my best friend. And somehow I think I lost myself too. There was a time I believed Adam was my soulmate. We met when I was 22. He was a couple years older, a freelance writer with sleepy eyes and a charming smile. He talked about his travels, his novel in progress. He felt so alive, creative, passionate. I fell fast. I came from a well-off family, but never leaned on it. I worked through college, freelanced, paid my own rent, bought my own car. Independence mattered to me. But when I told Adam about my background, he didn't react how I expected. First, disbelief. Then, resentment. So you don't really know what life is like, he said once. I laughed. Thought he was joking. He wasn't. When we moved in together, he insisted it had to be my place. I had a 2-bedroom apartment I rented myself. He said he couldn't afford rent yet. I offered to cover it if he handled his own expenses. He snapped. You think I'm poor? That fight was the first of many. I let so much slide. I paid for everything. Rent, dates, trips. He said he was saving for our future. I believed him. Then I noticed he was sending money to his mom every month. Sandra, she never liked me, said I was too polished, too confident, too independent. She wanted someone to serve her son, not be his equal. She never said it outright, but I felt it in her tone, her glances, her passive digs. Adam never defended me. Sometimes he laughed, sometimes he stayed silent. When I got pregnant with Josh, our first child, things got worse. I had to quit my job due to complications. Adam was furious. So you're just gonna sit at home? He snapped. It wasn't concern, it was blame. Like I'd failed him. I broke down crying and told my mom. Her response? You have to be strong. You're a mother now. She sided with him. After the birth, I struggled. Josh didn't sleep. I was exhausted, alone, overwhelmed. Postpartum depression hit hard, though I didn't know the term then. Adam said parenting wasn't his job, that I was the mother, so it was all on me. He wouldn't change a diaper or feed him. Didn't want to learn. My only support was Haley. We'd been best friends since childhood, roommates in college, birthday twins. She knew every part of me. I'd call her sobbing, desperate. She listened, reassured me, told me I was strong, told me Adam was a terrible partner. And then she got pregnant by him. I didn't leave my room for almost a full day. My dad brought food, placed it on the desk, and quietly left. The boys played in the living room with my mom, while I lay under a blanket trying to breathe. I didn't want to cry. I didn't have the strength. But my body didn't care. The tears came anyway, even when I was just staring at the ceiling. One thought wouldn't leave my head. They were here with me this whole time, in my house, under my roof, and I saw nothing. I remembered the day Haley held my hand in the delivery room. She said, "You're strong. You've got this." She stroked my hair while I cried through the contractions. Adam hadn't shown up. Work, he said. Now I knew where he was and who he was with. The thought made me physically sick. When I first met Adam's mother, Sandra, she made it crystal clear she didn't like me. The way I dressed, the way I spoke, even my shoes. Everything about me made her smirk with contempt. I tried so hard. Invited her to dinners, bought her gifts on holidays, tried to connect. It didn't matter. She saw me as a threat. Later, I understood why. Sandra lived off Adam. He sent her money every month, bought her things, paid off debts, handled her bills. She hadn't worked in years, had a drinking problem, and completely manipulated his emotions. When Adam and I moved in together, he constantly complained that he couldn't afford rent. I offered to cover it, as long as he paid for his own things. That wasn't enough for him either. He accused me of being greedy, said I was testing his love with money. I gave in. I was in love. I wanted peace. I worked in marketing, partnered with brands, ran digital campaigns. I made good money. Enough for both of us. I paid for restaurants, vacations, even helped him with his taxes. He said he was saving for our future. I believed that. Then came the first pregnancy. I had to quit work early. Constant pain, complications. Adam wasn't supportive. He said everything would fall on him now, even though I was still covering most expenses. He pushed me to go back to work, even guilted me. I finally opened up to my mom. Told her how overwhelmed I felt, how Adam was pressuring me. Her response? You're just tired. It'll pass. Hang in there. I believed her. I hoped having the baby would change him, but it made things worse. Josh was born on a rainy October night. My parents drove me to the hospital. Adam missed his phone, apparently. Later, he said he was sleeping, exhausted. Didn't realize it was that serious. I forgave him. Told myself, these things happen. He showed up the next day empty-handed and expressionless. Said he was tired. Left after an hour. I'd blocked out those memories. Didn't want to see the truth. But now they were coming back, one by one, like puzzle pieces falling into place. I had lived with someone who was never really there for me, and I only saw it when it was too late. The second pregnancy was unplanned. I cried in fear. I was ashamed, even with myself. I didn't want to go through hell again, but I chose to keep the baby. I believed I could rebuild. Adam was furious. He screamed, threw things, said he never asked for a second child. That's when I decided to return to work. My former boss happily took me back as a freelancer. I worked late nights while Adam played video games with his friend Clint. He said he deserved rest too. Said, you're not dying. I swallowed it all. For the kids, for stability. But deep down, fear was building. I was scared I'd eventually break. I started saving 50% of my income for myself. The rest went to our joint account. Looking back, I realized I was already preparing to leave. I just didn't know that my best friend would be the one to push it all over the edge. I remember that day clearly. I was in the kitchen doing dishes. Nick was asleep in his bassinet, and Josh was drawing all over the table with markers. One thought kept looping in my head. How much longer can I live like this? I was sleeping 3 hours a night, trying to work, care for a baby, keep up with Josh, cook, clean. Adam still sat in his headphones playing endless video games. Sometimes he didn't even notice I was crying in the bathroom. Other times, he just pretended not to. That evening, when I missed a deadline again, he walked by and said, if you wanted the kid, then figure it out yourself. I wiped my hands and said nothing. Just walked into the nursery, closed the door, and sat on the floor. I could feel the foundation of my life cracking beneath me. I was scared of falling apart. But even more than that, I was terrified that my kids would see me as weak. I wrote in my notebook, if he doesn't get a job by the end of the month, I'm leaving. It wasn't the first if, but this time I meant every word. The next morning, I went to Adam and calmly told him, you either find a job or I'm done. I need a partner, not another child. He looked surprised, but didn't snap like usual. He even nodded. I didn't believe him, and I didn't need to. The next morning, as I gathered his dirty laundry for the wash, I heard a familiar sound, an alert. A message popped up from an unfamiliar number. This time I picked up his phone immediately. It wasn't locked. The message read, when are you going to tell her? I'm pregnant. I can't keep this a secret anymore. I knew that number, there was no doubt. My hands went numb. I stood there holding his t-shirt in one hand and the phone in the other. I read the message 5 times. Every line. Every word. When he walked out of the shower, towel around his shoulders, he saw me and immediately knew. My face, my posture. Everything gave it away. He rushed toward me to grab the phone, but I had already placed it on the dresser. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just said, I saw it. All of it. He started stammering something about a misunderstanding, that it's not what you think. I turned, walked past him, picked up my bag, and began packing the kids' things. He followed me, saying things like, "It was a mistake and we need to talk." But I was already in survival mode. I knew if I didn't leave now, I never would. I took the kids and left. Not for an hour, not for a night. I knew I was never coming back. My parents opened the door and I unraveled. Mom gasped when she saw me standing there with 2 suitcases and baby Nick asleep in his carrier. Dad didn't say a word, just reached for Josh and said, "Come in." I stood frozen in the hallway until the door closed behind us. And then I broke. For the first time in what felt like years, I sobbed out loud. I told them everything. Not in order, not coherently. Fragments. Tears. Long silences. Dad listened quietly. Mom looked at me like I was losing my mind. Then like I was pathetic. "Haley?" she repeated. "Are you sure?" I nodded. Sure. I remembered her perfume lingering in our bathroom. How she and Adam would sit for hours just talking. How once he said, "Haley's a real woman, she gets it." I'd thought he was just comparing friendships. Now I knew. He was choosing. The next day, my mom walked into my room. She had a white envelope in her hand. She placed it on the table and sat across from me. "I was thinking," she said quietly, "maybe if you gave the kids to Adam, everything would settle down." I went numb. He is their father. He'll have a new baby soon. Maybe it's better if they grow up together? I didn't answer, just stared at her. I didn't even have the strength to scream. She was trying to buy my silence. I woke up at 3 a.m. in the middle of a panic attack. My whole body was shaking like I had a fever. My heart was pounding so fast it felt like it wanted to break out of my chest. My throat was dry, my lungs heavy. I didn't recognize the room at first. Only when I turned and saw Nick sleeping beside me did I remember. I was home, at my parents' house. I'd run, and I had nowhere to return to. I sat in the dark and stared at my son. He was sleeping peacefully, calm, safe. I stroked his soft hair and kept whispering to myself, "You deserve better. Both of you do." But in that moment, I didn't feel like a mother. I felt like a shadow. All morning, I couldn't shake the image of that envelope. My mother, the woman who had raised me to be strong, who stood beside me when I got into college, who helped sew my prom dress. That same woman tried to convince me to give my children to a man who didn't even show up for their birth. I looked at her now like she was a stranger. When my dad came home from work, I waited for him to change and make his tea. We sat in the living room. I gathered all my courage and said, "Dad, yesterday, Mom tried to give me money, to hand over custody of the kids to Adam." He slowly set his mug down and looked at me. His face went pale. He didn't say anything, just nodded. Then he stood up and left the room. A few hours passed. I was in the bedroom when I heard them arguing in the kitchen, loudly. My dad didn't scream. He never did. But his voice carried a weight that made the walls feel like they were shaking. Mom was crying. She kept saying she meant well, that she was thinking of the kids, that she couldn't believe I turned against her like this. My dad didn't answer. A minute later, the front door slammed. Silence. That evening, he came to me and said, "Tomorrow, we're getting answers. With you there." The next morning, the three of us sat at the table. Mom said nothing. I didn't either. Dad started. He asked her directly, "Why are you trying to convince our daughter to give up her kids? Why are you siding with the man who betrayed her?" Mom stayed quiet for a long time. Then, as if something snapped inside her, she started speaking. Her voice was thin and brittle. "I met with Haley," she said. "I didn't believe what you told me, Brooke. I thought you were exaggerating. Or maybe trying to blow things up because you were emotional." She wouldn't look at me. Haley begged me to forgive her. She cried, said she never meant to ruin your life, that she fell in love, that she was pregnant, that she needed Adam and couldn't do it alone. I clenched my fists. I wanted to leave, run. But I stayed. I listened. I felt sorry for her. She seemed lost, alone, and I thought, maybe if you two didn't divorce, things could be worked out. I told her not to break up your marriage. Said maybe, just maybe, you'd forgive him. That Adam could support her and still stay with you. "What?" was all my dad could manage. "And when I saw you wouldn't forgive him," she went on, "I thought maybe Haley could raise the children. All of them. Together. As a family. I knew you were struggling, I saw your depression, and I thought it would be better if they were raised by someone who wanted to be a mother. I couldn't breathe. You told her I was mentally unstable? I whispered. Mom started crying, said she didn't mean to, that she was just trying to explain, that she never thought I'd find out, that she was only trying to help. My dad stood up, took off his wedding ring, placed it on the table. You destroyed everything, and if you ever interfere again, I won't let you near the boys. He looked at me and said, I'm sorry, I didn't see it sooner. I always thought your mom was in your corner, but now I know. You only have me, and I'm here. That evening, my mom packed her bags. She left to stay with her sister. I didn't go out to say goodbye. I had no words left. I sat on the floor with Josh while he was drawing, and for the first time in forever, I didn't feel alone. My dad moved around the kitchen, humming something quietly. Nick slept on my chest, and it hit me. The people I need are still with me. The rest are gone. And thank God for that. The first few days after my mother left felt like I was floating in a vacuum. No tears, no rage, no relief. Just emptiness. As if everything had already happened and I was just watching from the outside. My dad acted calm. He didn't try to say too much. He was simply there. With tea, with dinner, with a quiet hug when I needed it. Adam and Haley stayed silent for almost a week. I figured they were waiting for me to cool off. Or for me to come to my senses, as they would probably put it. I knew this was only the beginning. And I was right. 8 days later, Adam's lawyer sent the first letter. He wanted to discuss joint custody. I wasn't surprised. I was furious. This man, who had never once acted like a father, suddenly wanted to be involved. He hadn't shown up to the hospital when Nick was born, had never gotten up at night, not once taken Josh to the park. But now that he realized he was losing everything, he wanted to play the role. My lawyer said, don't worry, everything's documented. Plus, the prenup. I never thought I'd be thankful to my father for that contract we signed before the wedding. At the time, I'd even been offended. But now, it was my shield. While the legal steps began, I threw myself into work. I needed to stay busy. I took on freelance projects, sometimes too many. I stayed up late after the boys were asleep. I was exhausted to the point of hearing static in my head, but it was the only way I didn't feel. Haley finally texted. A long message, full of excuses and lines like, I didn't mean to fall in love, it just happened. You should be grateful. You're free now. This is hard for me too. I read it once, then again, then closed the phone. I didn't delete it. Not because I wanted to save it, just, it didn't hurt anymore. It felt hollow. She was dead to me. As a friend, as a person, as a name. What stung most was knowing how long they'd been right there, in front of me. I'd confided in Haley, told her how Adam hurt me, how he did nothing, how tired I was. And she had listened, nodded, comforted me, then climbed into bed with him. I felt stupid. So naive. My dad noticed how quiet I'd gotten. One evening, he sat next to me and said, don't let them take the rest of you. They've already taken enough. Don't give them what's left. I nodded. Back then, I still didn't know how persistent they would be. Mid-month, we had our first meeting with the lawyers. Adam looked lost. Not like before. He wasn't yelling, wasn't blaming. He looked like he couldn't believe it had come to this. His lawyer started with, my client deeply regrets. But I cut him off, told them I wasn't there for apologies. When we got to the custody part, Adam asked for 50-50. We were ready. My lawyer pulled out the documents, everything, messages, photos, camera footage, showing me carrying everything alone, showing him ignoring the kids, not working, not being there. Haley's face went pale. She sat behind him, and for the first time, I saw fear. Not fear of me, not of court, of reality, of the life she chose, of living with the man she thought she'd won, without my friendship, without support, without money. My mother, by the way, tried to reach out to, through my aunt, said she had reflected on her behavior, was seeing a therapist. I didn't reply. Let her talk. It didn't change a thing. I no longer had a mother, just a woman I used to love, who sold me out, that I wouldn't forget. I didn't know how it would end, but I knew one thing. I would survive. I was stronger than I thought. Not because of rage, because of my kids, because there were no illusions left in me, just clarity. And the one thing I had left was truth. And that's the best thing I could have kept. I saw him through the glass. He was standing outside the preschool, waiting, holding a small toy Josh had forgotten at home. He had no right to be there, but he smiled like we were just divorced co-parents, like I hadn't caught him with my best friend, who was pregnant with his child. I took a step back. My whole body tensed. And that's when I realized he still thought he could win me back. That evening, I found a letter in the mail. From him. The handwriting was messy but careful. Apologies. Regret. Promises that he's changed. That he didn't know how much he was hurting me. That he still loves me. On the back, an old photo of us with the boys. I didn't cry. I just stared at it, like it was someone else's family, because it wasn't us anymore. That version of us no longer existed. 2 days later, Haley showed up. She was standing outside my office, holding her belly. She said she needed to talk. That she didn't mean for this to happen. That I should at least hear her out. I walked right past her, not out of anger, out of emptiness. Her voice no longer carried weight. I knew if I stayed one more week, I'd fall apart. So I packed the kids into the car and drove to the old lake house my grandmother used to own. No one knew where we were. For the first time in a long time, that felt right. We spent 3 days there. No phones, no updates, no legal letters. We fed ducks, picked up stones, played with clay. Josh laughed again. Nick fell asleep on my chest to the sound of water lapping against the dock. The first night, I stepped out onto the porch barefoot. I stared out at the lake. And then I cried. Not from pain, but from release. Soft, quiet crying. I was finally breathing. The air felt clean. My chest wasn't tight. No one was expecting me to be graceful, understanding, mature. I just existed. And that was enough. That night, I sent a text to my lawyer. No compromise. Full custody. We're going all the way. I wasn't hesitating anymore. I wasn't thinking, what if he changes? I wasn't waiting for empathy. I knew who I was dealing with. And I finally knew who I was without him. This was me. Alive. Free. With 2 kids in my arms. And a heartbeat finally moving in the right rhythm. The court session lasted less than an hour. I'd expected something dramatic, maybe even loud or tearful. But it passed quietly, almost too quietly. My lawyer presented all the evidence. In return, silence. The courtroom felt still, like everyone already knew how it would end. Adam sat hunched over, head down. He didn't say a word, not even when the judge made the ruling. Full custody to me, child support from him, visitation rights conditional on stable employment, and actual parental participation. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel triumph. I just exhaled. Softly. As if for the first time in months, I let the weight off my chest. Haley wasn't in the courtroom, but I knew she was nearby. A few days later, her mother called. Quietly, she said, "He doesn't want to marry her. He even said he's not sure the baby is his." I wasn't surprised. She added that she'd removed Haley from her will, that she'd left part of her estate to my children instead. She said she was ashamed, that sometimes loving your child means saying a hard no. I thanked her. Not for the inheritance, for the principle. Adam texted me only once after the trial. "I made a mistake. You were the best thing in my life." I didn't respond. I didn't have to anymore. Haley fell into depression. I found out by accident, through a mutual acquaintance. She was telling everyone she couldn't cope, that he was cold, distant, that the baby cried at night and he just put on his headphones. I didn't feel satisfaction, just emptiness, and maybe a little pity, not for her, but for the version of myself who once believed in people who never deserved it. My mother never called again. She was still living at my aunt's, still going to therapy, according to my dad. But I didn't ask for updates. I didn't feel hate, just indifference. She was a chapter I had closed. My dad remained my anchor. He spent time with the boys, taught Josh to ride a bike. In the evenings, when I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea, he'd just sit beside me. We didn't say much, but in that silence, there was more comfort than in 1,000 words. I didn't become someone new. I just returned to myself. The version of me buried under years of silence, compromises, and tear-soaked pillows. I didn't need to win. I just needed to survive. And I did. That night, I watched my sons playing in the yard. Josh kicked a ball, and Nick laughed from the grass. Their laughter was my soundtrack, my proof, my testimony. I didn't know what came next, but for the first time in a long while, I wasn't afraid. I wasn't waiting for apologies anymore. I wasn't hoping for justice. I'd already received what mattered most, myself.